This is TWiT.
All right, there's probably some people who are wondering why I was holding a tomahawk, an axe type thing just a while ago, and that's because when we were still not thinking that we were going to bring deadly weapons into the studio, we talked about preparing for disaster.
This is a tool.
It's a tool.
Just like a rock. It's only a deadly weapon if you use it as one.
Deadly rock. Now, I thought what we could possibly do is go through some of our go bags and some of our philosophies of putting together disaster preparedness kits.
Yes.
You want to do this?
Absolutely.
Let's go ahead and head over to the news desk and see if we can court some disaster. All right. Now, Patrick, when you put together your go bag, there is a temptation to think about it as just a combination of technologies, just the gadgets and the gizmos that we think we want to carry, but you actually have to think about your go bag before you start putting it together.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the biggest problems we run into. People don't back up. And I'm rubbing my eyeballs here because I have, and we talk about backing up all the time on TechZilla, or TechZilla,
right.
TechZilla's gone. And it's really simple, right? Your computer, that computer may be worth $1,500, $2,000. Mm-hmm. How much are the photos of your child you can't replace, your thesis, your bank data, your collection of whatever it is?
Irreplaceable.
And so the thing is with natural disasters, but I've had people like, you're really kind of uptight about backing up. It's like, yeah, I am really uptight about backing up because my mom lives in a place that floods a lot. I have family that have been burned out of homes. I've got friends that live in Southern California where wildfires apparently just like to wipe out whole neighborhoods every couple of years because they can. I live in earthquake territory where at some point, in theory, the ground's going to shake and my house is going to fall down, which is something I'm really thrilled about thinking about and explaining to my children after it happens. And, we, of course, have recently had a whole bunch of hot, steamy hurricane action stomping all over Houston and Florida. And the time you start preparing for a disaster is not when the Weather Channel goes, we got a really amazing cyclonic action. It looks like it's going to trigger a hurricane off the coast of wherever you live, and all hell's going to break loose. Or, the time to start backing up your data is not after the earthquake, because this, it's probably not going to work, as stupid as that sounds. So you want to do things like back up your computer now, back up your data offline, 3, 2, 1, 3 copies of your data on 2 different mediums, at least one off-site. And I bring all of that up because, by the time there is a natural disaster, all of the stores are going to be sold out. If you've never been in a place that has been hammered by a hurricane, let me explain. All hell breaks loose. As all hell is beginning to break loose, for days before that, people panic and they buy all of the water, all of the canned food. And there's it's really cool. One of the funnest things you can do just as a surreal experience is to watch a supermarket empty before a hurricane.
Yeah, that was one of the things I saw when I was down in South America during a disaster, that you would go into a store and it's literally just the stuff on the ground.
Yeah.
And people are still picking up the stuff off the ground because they're like, well, I need to get something.
Yeah, they buy all of the things they might actually eat.
Yeah.
And then they buy all the things they might actually eat if they're desperate. Then they buy all the things that might actually be trade to something that they might want to eat. And then they buy everything that's left.
Yeah.
Because everybody needs to buy a case of, roach repellent right before a hurricane when the roaches are all going to drown. But I literally watched them, and that's the reaction. Well, it was the only thing left and I drove out here.
Yeah.
So don't wait.
Don't be that guy.
Don't be that guy.
Don't be that guy.
Buying the case of roach repellent before the hurricane drowns all the roaches. So there is an upside, I guess.
Now let's get past the upside and actually start looking. This is you assembled a go bag, and I've got a go bag. This is actually a template that I've had for a while of things that I keep in my car.
Somebody walked off with my go bag. Is it under here?
Your go bag
there it is.
is gone. And the whole idea is I need something that can keep me alive after a disaster. And typically, this will be in my car, so I'm assuming I have my car to get away from the immediate disaster. But then it has to keep me alive and safe for maybe a week or so.
Yeah. I have a slightly different approach.
Okay,
because I have a family of 4. And the most likely disaster to happen here in the Bay Area is an earthquake. And there is because a friend of mine was like, we're going to go to our parents' place in Grass Valley because they have a cabin there we can stay. And I'm like, wait a minute. So July 4th weekend, when everybody knows July 4th weekend is coming, it takes 4 hours to get from San Francisco to the Carquinez Bridge, which is like 45 miles away. This is a drive that normally takes like an hour. So you're telling me after the big one hits, And the streets of downtown San Francisco are under 5 feet of glass. It's popped off all of the giant buildings, and the water mains are broken, and the gas doesn't work, and everything's collapsed, and people are panicking and digging their neighbors out and doing whatever else they do after a giant earthquake. You're going to drive, spend 3 or 4 days driving to your parents' house? Can you even get gasoline? Do all the, will there be electricity? Is your gas tank full? So
there's preparedness that goes into being prepared.
Yeah.
Now, you have a family of 4. I actually have a family of 15. I live with 14 others.
Oh, my goodness.
But I don't really like them, so this is just
for me, my bag started with, and it's funny, I'm glad we did this because I hadn't checked, like, the bag I keep the stuff in. Because what I do is, my issue is, like, I worked in San Francisco. My family is in the East Bay. What is it going to take me, and what I really needed to add to the kit that I didn't have was a kayak. Or a folding boat.
So this is your go-home bag.
This is my go-home bag. Because the bug-out bag for my family basically looks like we're going to go camping, in the middle of nowhere for several days. Because when you have 4 people, it just and a couple of them are small, things just get complicated.
Right.
So, in terms of, we're kind of sheltering in place unless the island goes underwater, in which case I don't really want to think or talk about that because we got a boat. But, you should we start unpacking?
Yeah, let's start. I want to start with food just because there is a little thing that we have to start off here so that we can finish before the show's over. Now, I know this is kind of overreacting, and I know there's going to be people out there who are going to laugh at me, but all of the go bags I've ever assembled, I actually do include MREs, which are known as meals rejected by everyone. They're not great, but what I found is that they contain so many calories per each one of these, and they have such a long shelf life that they are actually quite good in a disaster pack. Now, I'm going to go ahead and open this one up right here because
if you've never had the MRE experience.
Yeah, it's not great. This grape jelly, because, you want to do that. Each one of these is going to contain about 12 to 1,300 calories, which is enough for a person. Technically, we should have about 2,000, about 2,500 calories per day to maintain our weight. But if it's a disaster,
it's a cookie.
Yeah, you got to be thinking that you're going to be. The super cookie. That is a cookie that will survive a nuclear war.
Yeah, whether or not you can actually chew it is an entirely different question.
Chewing is entirely optional. You just need to get some protein and carbs into you. There's always a couple of things. Now, this is what people think of when they think of the MREs. This is the self-heating meal. So the whole idea with this, and actually I have to open this up and grab some water.
Which meal did you open, by the way?
This is some sort of stew, which is fun because when you order these meals, you don't really get to choose what you want. Mexican-style chicken stew. Oh, see? We're going to be eating good tonight in our mock disaster.
No, I'm going to be eating my Pro Bars.
Oh, there we go. Okay, also I carry 3 liters of water because the human body needs at minimum 1 liter of water a day. Preferably 2 liters. 3 liters is actually what is the norm, but if you're in an emergency, you're probably not going to have that. It doesn't take that much. This is actually a water-activated heater. Now, this is a combination of magnesium, really finely powdered magnesium, iron, and salt, NaCl.
They're really fun to play with in fires. Wear safety goggles. If you blow your eyes out, it's not my fault.
Exactly. Now, the whole idea is once you add water, what's going to happen is it starts an exothermic reaction. The magnesium and the iron actually combine, and they form millions of tiny little batteries, and these batteries are shorting out.
It's basically like thermite, but on a much smaller scale.
Yeah, it's thermite,
Instead of burning a hole
fun.
Through the top of your hard drive, it's just,
It's just like thermite, except there's not so much death and screaming and disaster.
Always a big plus.
Yeah, this is actually going to get really, really hot, which is why I asked to bring out these blotters, because this actually could start a fire in the studio, which will be fun when we have all our visitors here from Australia. Now, what was this again? Mexican something?
Mexican
stew?
Chicken stew.
Chicken-y stew?
Mexican-style chicken stew.
All right. So
it's also marked as new, 2015.
Yes, that's the other thing. When you buy these things, they're going to cost about $14 each or so. They're good for about 5 to 6 years, so they have a fantastically long shelf life, although I am having to recycle the ones from the very oldest go bags that I have. There's a little fill line on these packs right here. And that's what you fill this thing up to. Do not overfill it because otherwise
it gets exciting.
The reaction will go out of control. And instead of cooking your meal, you burn a hole through the table.
Always awkward.
And and also
Leo, about the table.
Sorry, Leo. So we just pour a little bit of water in there. Oh, okay. And all over the table. And I way overfilled it. So yeah, we are going to have fire. And then you just drop this thing down, close this up. And then we're just going to slosh this gently back and forth. We just kind of want to introduce the water to all the magnesium.
Why are you pointing the open end of the bag at me?
I know.
Can you point that at your laptop?
Like, let's go over that way. Okay.
This is why we have the tomahawk.
We put this back into its little cardboard pouch box thingy. And in about 15 minutes, we should have a fully cooked meal. Wouldn't that be exciting?
I'm slightly terrified, to be perfectly honest with you.
It's like eating a bar of salt. So get excited, because this is going to be delish. Now, again, one of these things is it's enough to keep you going. You're going to lose weight over 7 days or so. Yeah, that thing is going to leak everywhere. It might actually start to steam. Don't worry. This is normal. This is all perfectly normal. Now, you probably don't carry any MREs in your bag, right?
No, I actually, I discovered racing down in Baja that I can live indefinitely on these things called Pro Bars, which are like the
Those
only,
are great, yeah.
it's like an oatmeal cookie. I don't know how to describe it. They took fruit, they took oatmeal, they took things that people normally hate to eat, and it's just enough sugar that it actually tastes good, but it doesn't make me want to vomit. So I literally have about, let's see, there's it's about 1,200 calories worth of Pro Bars in here.
You should have noticed that a lot of our language around food for disaster preparedness is just to the point of vomit. And that's actually true because
these
all
are
has to have
pretty
long
tasty.
shelf life.
I also usually have a roll of Oreos because nothing makes me happier than Oreos.
Yeah, I carry a lot of granola
Chewy
bars. Actually, this is something that one of my marathon friends has told me, which is if you are trying to get away from a disaster, don't think of it as a meal, like 3 meals or one big meal a day. It's easier to snack a little bit. Your body actually uses it more efficiently than having a big meal and then trying to digest it.
Yeah, in my case, my goal is to keep moving until I get to the house.
Right.
And then I can probably deal with all the nightmare at the house. I actually keep a really simple, people talk about space blankets, which I hate because they don't do a particularly good job keeping you warm and they don't do a particularly good job keeping you dry. But a company called Survival Outdoors Longer, or SOL, the coolest thing I've ever seen is actually by a fellow by the name of Kummerfeld, and he taught survival for the Air Force for like 3 decades, and he is the man. And but he basically sells what amounts to sort of a giant garbage bag made out of 6 mil plastic. And this is basically the same idea. This is big enough so I can fit like me and one of my kids inside of it, but it's the only version of the thermal bag that I actually feel is worth carrying, the Mylar Space Emergency Blankets. And it's basically a giant plastic sleeping bag that does 2 things. Yeah, it will reflect some heat, but mostly it will keep me dry. And I can fit myself, and if I've got one of my kids with me, one of my kids inside of it to keep all of us warm.
I get asked about disaster equipment, and the thing that I always tell people who are trying to assemble their bug out bag for the first time is the biggest enemy you have if you are bugging out of an area is actually exposure. Yeah, that's the elements are going to kill you. And actually, here you go. I have one of those little solar blankets that you hate so much, just because it's so small. I bought like a 10-pack of these things. I hide them everywhere.
I also have zip ties, and somewhere in here should be a roll of Gorilla Tape because it's amazing what you can do with those in times of trauma.
Great minds think alike.
Yeah.
Gotta have the zip ties. They're super effective. Also, I always carry a bunch of like Ziploc bags and just garbage bags. There you go.
Yeah, literally everything inside here is
so useful for things you can't even think of.
Well, the other thing, it will keep your iPhone dry. It will keep an iPad dry. You can use or any type of smartphone you can actually use physically inside one of those.
Right.
They are the worst possible scenario for water carrying, but they will help you carry a couple pints of water. Yeah. I don't recommend it, but if you're desperate, they'll work.
Also, you've got a first aid kit, something for basic injuries, right?
I have super glue, Gorilla Tape, Band-Aids, Neosporin, and that's pretty much all I carry. Yeah. If I'm feeling, I have a trauma bag that I probably should put in this, but the trauma bag is designed to deal with people who are like bleeding out and or heavily close to death.
This is sort of a nod to comfort, but I always carry moist towelettes in my first aid kit. And then I also have this. You get these so many times at conferences. I always throw one bottle of waterless cleanser, although this is waterless cleanser with glitter. So it's, it's a fun emergency. Yeah,
We have
You can't have an emergency without a little bit of glitter.
Oh my goodness. One of the reasons I was really glad we did this today is I discovered that I had loaned my water purification kit to a buddy. who never brought it back.
Boom.
Yes.
How about that? We both have the Sawyer. This is about 20 bucks. I think we both basically have the same kit.
Yeah.
And the whole idea is this is going to come with a little inflatable bladder. So you fill this thing up, it screws on to this, and then you just provide pressure and it will squirt through the filter that's in here. This is supposedly good for up to 100,000 gallons of filtering, although I found that it kind of jams up after 100, so
you have to reverse
clean
it. They have a flushing kit, and almost all of the modern ones have some kind of flushing kit, or advise you to sort of blow backwards through it to blow the stuff out. But yeah, the interesting thing for me about these is it's one of the smallest kits you can get, and I have multiple bags. These will actually fit on any kind of 20-ounce water bottle.
Yep.
So what I would do is, rather than using these, I would fill a water bottle and then fill these with my clean water. And I would, if you're in a place that has running water, fill your water bottles before you leave that place.
Right. I will say one thing, and yes, I know there's people in the audience who are thinking about this. This will filter like 99.99% of bacteria and microorganisms. It will not remove salt. So you cannot put salt water into this and then expect to get clean water out, which also means no. You cannot use it to filter your own pee.
Well, you can filter your own pee, but it's still mostly going to be pee.
Your pee was sterile anyways, so there's not a whole lot of microorganisms in there unless you've done something bad. Now, okay, so we've got water. Again, 1 liter of water a day is minimum. That's just to keep you alive. If you're going to be moving, and we're moving, 2 liters is what you're really thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I can roll 3 liters plus whatever other water bottle I'm carrying with me before I go, and I would fill that before I left wherever I was. Yeah, and like you, wipes are good for cleaning yourself and also for relieving yourself.
Yeah, and also if you've seen the Book of Eli, they're really good for trade. It's a movie thing.
Know.
Yeah, okay. This is something that I've learned over the years. I used to carry a lot of like camping line. I've replaced it with rubber tubing, silicone tubing. This is super, super effective. You can use this in medical emergencies to splint or to tie off if you've got an injury. But it's also good if you like, for example, if I wanted to stretch this between branches and then I hang a blanket over it and make a makeshift shelter.
I feel so old school. I've just got paracord in here.
Yeah, paracord is fantastic. But the reason why I like this is also really good for like siphoning gas out of cars.
Oh, I like that.
If you need fuel. Not that I would ever do that unless there was an emergency.
You know, if someone abandons their car, is it okay to punch a Nazi in the face? Yes!
Call back. I love children. This is what it means to be a pro broadcaster. I always carry a little something, typically 1 change of clothing, because if you get wet, again, we go back to the exposure problem.
I'm not smart enough to carry 1 thing of clothing, but I always have, because of, it's really funny here, like most of the United States, you have weather. Like it gets cold in the winter, it gets hot in the summer, and it changes a lot in between. We have 2 seasons here in California. We have the dry season and the wet season, and the wet season also happens to be the cold season.
Right.
So I try to always have, I basically always have a fleece and some kind of waterproof jacket.
Right, yeah, so this jacket's waterproof, and you can layer it. Yeah. I carry 1 change of undergarments. I will typically carry 2 changes of socks, because those are typically the ones that are going to get wet the most. And then, if I'm only doing it for a week, that should be enough. Now, how about we actually start looking at some of the tech, because this is a lot of food and water and medical supplies. There are some pieces of tech that I do enjoy carrying with me. This is actually a dry case. You could do this with a plastic bag. A Ziploc bag works just fine. But this is actually one of these units that was designed to work with your tech, specifically your phone. I've actually used these to go like scuba diving with a phone before. So I know they work underwater. If you are bugging out, your electronic device is one of the most useful things that you're going to carry with you. And I actually have mine preset. Anytime I go into a new area, I download the offline maps into the phone. If there is a problem...
See, I just have all 50 states already downloaded onto my phone.
There you go.
I have a Navigon application and another application. I have basically a topographic map for the entire western 50 states, and then I keep the street maps for the entire United States in my phone.
Right. I used to carry a GPS with me, and that was great because it runs on just any kind of power I can give to it. But the detail that I can get off of a phone with the GPS enabled, even if I have no cellular service because everything's on the phone itself, it's fantastic. I mean, that is probably your best survival tool. Uh-oh, what's this?
External batteries.
Oh, yeah, okay, wait. I got some of those in here. This is mine. Which one did you get?
This is one I've been carrying around that came out of the Hack House for most of my stuff that I bought is Anchor.
Yeah, this is an Anchor as well. This is a 26,000 milliamp hour. I mean, combined with my phone, if I turn off my Wi-Fi, turn off the radio, and only turn on the GPS when I need it, this will actually keep my phone charged for, I think it was 8 weeks.
Wow.
This is probably overkill, but it also allows me to charge up anything else that I might need at that given time.
It's better to actually have too much power in case you do, one, screw up and leave something running in the background that runs your phone down like the GPS, or two, start getting your long phone conversations or pinging cell towers that don't exist. Is this a solar kit or binoculars?
Oh, maybe a little of everything. What I like about this bag is I can actually open it from the bottom as well. I'm just not using that right now. So this is the solar kit. So actually not that useful. Believe it or not, if you're bugging out, this is not super useful. What I do like about this though is I can hang this off the back of my bag. So it could be charging a little bit as I move. And it has this. This is a waterproof pouch that you can enclose, so you could actually put your device in here and it will charge off. It's got an internal 10,000 milliamp battery that gets charged by the solar panel. This is sort of, if you're out for an extended period of time, this is a way to at least have a way to recharge that battery.
Things have gone fully sideways and you're spending weeks out in the hills.
This is the, everything is blown up kit. Now, do you have any sort of emergency radio or lighting?
I sometimes do. I kind of stopped carrying them for a while.
Yeah, I've had this forever. In fact, they've discontinued this. This is an Eaton FR300. It's a crank, but it's actually got 4 sources of power. So I can run this off of standard alkali batteries. It's got a LiPo battery in there, and I can also use the crank or the external battery. And for that, it gives me, sort of like the light, the flasher, and more importantly, the radio. So I get AM, FM, plus all the weather channels. This is a good way to make sure that you actually know what's going on during the disaster.
I think it's smart to have a radio. My problem is that my kids always find the ones with the handles, and then they just disappear with them.
And they destroy the handles.
Which doesn't give me a lot of hope that it's going to hold up. Eton makes actually pretty good gear, and they do a really amazing lineup of handheld chargers.
And they've got everything from about $20 all the way up to $150. You just find the one that works for you. What I like about this is this actually has an output, so I could charge my phone or the battery if I wanted to sit there and crank for
days.
A day, So done.
Anything that involves cranking to charge things probably takes longer and is more frustrating than you want to deal with, but it is an option.
There is a maxim that preppers use, and that is if you have 2, you have 1. If you have 1, you have none.
Which is why you have solar and a crank and the batteries.
And also my phone, and then this thing. This is, I actually bought a bunch of these things. They've been all over. They'll work anywhere.
I've seen these.
Yeah, they're emergency phones. They work off AA batteries. Now the cool thing about this is even if you don't have a SIM, you can turn this thing on and it will still make emergency calls.
Whether or not anyone will answer.
Yeah, if everyone's dead, then it's probably kind of redundant. But it's incredibly light, it's in a waterproof case, and this is your emergency phone. I mean, it will connect to any GSM system.
I don't know if you can see it, but there's actually a little Energizer AA battery inside of there.
I should probably check that. It might have turned into powder by now.
This should be good. No, it should say on the outside.
Yeah, I think it's a lithium. It's okay.
Lithium.
Okay.
03-2027. I think you got a few years left on this one.
Now, I got to ask you, what do you have for flame? Because at some point, you're going to need to start a fire.
I don't do flame.
You don't?
In this bag, so the whole point of my bag is to get me back through an urban environment to my house. And in the most likely emergency, which, as we discussed, is an earthquake, the most likely thing to happen when creating a flame is that I blow somebody else's house up or light somebody's gas line on fire. So, I have a lighter that I keep in my bag normally for heat shrink. There's nothing wrong with a butane torch. I don't know if that's the ideal thing for lighting things on fire.
Probably not.
I don't get into fights with people holding butane torches for obvious reasons. But in my case, the likelihood, nothing I have needs to be cooked. Nothing I have needs to be boiled. Nothing I have, there is no reason for me to light a fire unless I'm freezing. And if I'm freezing, I probably need to actually keep moving and find a better place to bunker down.
I understand. Yeah,
so,
I get
and
that.
It's also, again, it's the Bay Area. Like, it's 32 degrees and people are like, it's so cold. Life sucks. I don't have a down coat. And I'm like,
I don't think I'm going to need to create a flame, but I just really like fire.
there you have it.
All right. Okay, tools.
Tools.
Because now, I used to, in my early go bags, I had way too many tools. Now I've kind of reduced it to this mini Leatherman, this mini multi-tool. Yeah, you do the same thing. You're not going to be assembling anything while you're running, so it's really just something that
fixing things.
Fixing a couple things, cutting zip ties.
Yeah.
That's what you need, and you know,
Yeah.
any sort of multi-tool will do that.
I have a Leatherman Skeletool that basically is on me 24/7, 365 or near me, and I have a spare Leatherman that goes in the bag. I mean, basically what I have, everything I have fits into the bag that I normally carry to work, because you know, since I run my life out of my backpack, it's not like I'm going to, you know, dump my work backpack to get home. You know, I also keep a ridiculous knife, not for self-defense, but because it's actually really useful to be able to cut things, or if you've had conversations with people who have had to get out of environments that have been through an earthquake. You know, this is basically a knife that is thick enough where I can use it as a pry bar.
Speaking of pry bars, you've told me that I shouldn't be carrying this. I've always included a pry bar, a crowbar, in every bug out bag. I think they're incredibly useful, especially if you've ever talked to somebody who has had to like break open a door to get into their house or out of an office in an earthquake. You have to be careful. I don't think in an earthquake situation they're going to give you much crap in California, but if that could be considered burglary tools, you might end up in trouble. For example, this knife, you know, I'm going to try not to make any Crocodile Dundee jokes because of the young people. That's
this
not a knife.
If I mount this knife, if I put this knife in my bag, I could probably be arrested for it being concealed in my bag. If I'm wearing it on my hip, or if it is duct taped to the strap on my bag, I am fine. So, you know, it's you know, it's something to think about before you start stuffing things into a bag. A friend of mine's like, well, I keep a pistol at the office. I'm like, well, okay, but you know, it's probably going to be taken away from you the first time you run into a police checkpoint, and people, you know, do with that what you will. Move to another state if you have to, but you know, understand what the laws are and what qualifies as legal or illegal in terms of transport. I need a weapon to keep myself safe. I get it, man. We've all been there. We've all wanted to have a stick to beat somebody half to death with. Just make sure you're not going to end up in prison, because yeah, actually crowbars are really effective as self-defense. I prefer longer sticks because I like to be farther away.
I've watched Walking Dead. Yeah.
I learned all my tips from zombie movies for survival. Thank you. You know, the best plan is to not get into a conflict.
Precisely. Precisely.
Because there's nothing worse than finding out that the skinhead Nazi you punched in the face has 7 of his best friends around the corner.
Yeah.
You know, it hurts to learn that lesson.
Yes, it does.
Especially if there's no actual services to, you know, help you at that point.
Now, the thing is, when you're putting together a go bag, I always choose the bag last, because I look at the stuff that I might be collecting, and I never pack it to the gills, because I'm assuming that as I'm going, I'm going to be collecting anything I can to help me in my endeavor to stay alive.
What's in my inventory? And let's look for...
Exactly, and then I was eaten by what was a grue? I get eaten by a grue.
A grue eats your face. You have died of dysentery. That's the one from Oregon Trail.
So I think what Patrick and I are saying is that, yes, definitely put some thought into putting together your go bag wherever you are. It's always a good thing to have something that's ready to go. And it doesn't have to be, there's a nuclear war and I need a bug out bag. It can just be, look, I want to be prepared.
Yeah, I want to be able to, what's going to happen if I have to walk for 18 hours to get back to my house, because I have to go down to another bridge, or if I have to walk all the way down to San Jose around the entire bay to get back to my house, you know, what's likely to be useful? Things that will prevent you from dying of exposure, things that will help you get water, enough food to keep your caloric intake. Don't assume you'll be able to buy or find anything. Don't carry anything that's likely to end up pissing off the local police or sheriff's office and end up with your ass arrested, taking up valuable sources that could be used for more dangerous people.
So use your common sense. I shouldn't have said that.
There's nothing wrong with common sense. I just don't know if it's always the best thing to rely on based on the decisions I see people make every day. There was a lot of people driving Teslas with the dotted line going through the center of the Tesla because they couldn't decide if they wanted to be the left or the right. And so
That's just being cautious, Patrick.
I like that.
Folks, if you want to see more bug out bag disaster preparedness, you're going to want to watch, and I think it's in 3 weeks, we've got a know-how coming up where we're covering exactly this. And we're kind of approaching it from the maker DIY side, so we're going to be MacGyvering some stuff.
They're going to be making tomahawks out of railroad spikes with crazy glue, duct tape, and anger.
It's what you do.